Hi, welcome to another episode of
TakChek or PekChek.
I'm Weiren.
I'm Nicholas.
And together we are an education lifestyle podcast where each week we take a topic and at the end of it we decide whether or not it is interesting, which is
TakChek
or frustrating, which is
PekChek.
Okay, so for today's topic, quite an interesting topic. So recently, Minister Chan Chun Sing announced that they will be changing the JC admission criteria from L1R5, and then they're going to change it now to L1R4. So this means that instead of taking 6 subjects as what was previously required, now we will be taking 5 subjects, and this will start from the 2028. So if I am not wrong, this will mean which batch of current batch of Sec 1s? So this 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028.
Correct.
Yeah, the current batch of Sec 1s.
Yeah.
Nicholas, maybe you can enlighten me on what the objectives are for this?
So usually itself based off our old L1R5 system. All right. There is a criteria of able to score a points of 16 points or better to be eligible for junior colleges.
For our system, our system was 20 points.
20
points or lower.
Yes. So for this case here, the criteria itself for going to JC at this current moment here of L1R5, it still stands that you will need to pass your mother tongue examination.
Yes.
All right. And within this L1R5, L stands for language. All right.
Yes,
that would be
one
the English language.
Yes.
All right. Then you have your R5, which is 1 math, 1 science, 1 humanities, and the remaining 2 R's can be your 2 best subjects. Right, that was the current scheme from that. So with this new change from L1R5 to L1R4, I do think that there is the objective. All right, it's very important for us to be very aligned with the objective of what the minister is actually saying here is for students to actually take lesser subjects.
Yes.
And again, this is at a very superficial level. With the lesser number of subjects, students are going to have a bit more time. All right. Now, time itself is relative. Like how you and I will use the time is different, but I would have imagined that some students will use the additional time to hone and focus, zoom in on the lesser subjects. All right. Or maybe this can be discussed at the later part of the podcast. They will have now more time to pursue tuition for all this kind of...
Good for us, right?
Yeah. But I think ultimately the whole idea here is still aligned towards pursuing of their interests and not just to use the extra time to just really improve my current subject, but really just go out of school, explore your interests.
Get more experience
Correct.
out of the academic setting.
And I was also hoping, and I think this was pretty aligned with what Melissa had mentioned, that they now will have more time to also engage in their CCAs. All right, because long time in the past, I used to be triple science. And very sad one, because when everyone they can leave for school, I need to stay back on a Wednesday, and I need to come back on a Saturday. So I think with the lesser subjects required for the admission, I think naturally, this is something we're going to talk about later. Naturally, the subject combination, I think there will be a little bit of a tweaking and a bit of a preference for what students might want to take with respect to that.
Just curious, as a triple science student, how many subjects do you take?
Okay, so my subject was triple science, then double math, 高华, Puhua, social study with elect geography.
Okay, so 8 subjects lah.
And did I include English? I haven't included English. Right?
Haven't included English.
So
9 subjects.
9 subjects. 9 subjects.
Okay.
I took 9 subjects.
Wow, that's quite terrible.
Yeah. So I think Minister just really want to improve and redefine the definition of success. So if we get into the mechanics itself of the revision itself, okay, so once you go from R5 to an R4, now I think I did mention at the start, so correct me if I'm wrong, that instead of 20 points or below, because now you took away 1 subject, now it's going to be 16 points and below.
Yes.
16 points and
16
below.
points.
Okay, so before we move on with more nitty-gritty, do you know of the bonus cut-off point? The bonus discount. Yep.
You mean due to your CCA as well as your higher mother tongue lah?
Correct.
Yeah. So previously under the old L1R5 system, it was supposed to be you can deduct a maximum of 4 points. So I think the lowest points that you can get in the past was 2 points. Right?
So that's a raw point of 6 for L1R5.
For your L1R5, right. Then after that you deduct
another 4 points.
But under the new system, then they will take away 3 points only. I think it's fair lah.
Fair. I mean,
think
it's
it's fair.
lesser subjects consideration, taking away your discount is lesser, it's going to be fairer.
But this means that the floor, the absolute floor will still be 2 points, right? Because
yes,
you
because
can get a raw of 5
minus
points, then after that you minus 3.
Okay, so let's correct you on that. Actually, the raw is not really going to be 2 points. It could technically be 0 points. All right, because there is a current criteria which is now also for L1R5, which is on your Chinese, Malay, or Tamil elective program.
The MEP,
language.
the
So
Chinese elective
that
language
is
elective
2 points
program,
regardless. So right now itself, we are going to have 4 and 2. Right? That means if you get a raw of 6, you minus 6, you get kosong, 0
Zero.
points. Yes.
Okay.
So in L1R4, all right, in order to not make sure, in order to not let you have -1 score, all
Okay.
right, so that's where now the maximum deduction is 3, but the Tamil, Malay, and Chinese elective program will still have a 2 additional bonus point deduction.
But is this different? I'm sorry, I'm not too aware of this Chinese, Malay, or Tamil language elective program. Is this any different from your higher mother tongue?
It is different. Okay, so let me explain to you. Okay, so let's talk about the traditional points deduction first. We have 2 points from CCA,
Yeah.
right, depending on your leadership role, and or you have 2 points from higher mother tongue. You have 2 points from affiliated JC. Okay, but maximum from that category is just 4 points from the current system. All right, but Chinese, Malay, and Tamil elective program is if you were to enter a said JC and they offer an elective program and you need to bind that as your H2. So I'm just going to use an example. Let's say I'm going to use a Nanyang JC, for example.
Yeah.
You're going to enter and do a Chinese C-Lit,
Okay.
Chinese literature program. But you have to do it, and then that's a 2 point system. And to the best of my knowledge, if you do retain, you still have to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, like you sign on, you do that program itself from there. So yes, this is totally different from your higher mother tongue. It is you enter the school that must bind you as a H2 subject.
Okay, it sounds like torture to me because my Chinese is terrible. Okay.
So I do know of students who actually use this C-Lit route to enter some of the said JC and to help them to lower their raw score.
I'm aware.
Yeah. All right. So with that being said, okay, the bonus points is still in effect, and I think that any regular Joe, all right, any regular student should not have an issue of getting -2 points from CCA. Okay,
I didn't get the minus.
Is that a very sensitive? No, I used to be from military band. I was from military band, and I don't hold any leadership position. I just go for CCA. I just participated in SYF, and the points just met.
My school was very strict about it.
Okay.
I think because last time I was in NCC, you needed to achieve a certain rank. Yeah,
Okay.
and basically, I think only the top few people in NCC, right, could get 2 points minus.
Okay, so
Then everybody else all got 1 point.
So if you're a regular member, that's just going to be 1 point. Okay.
You need to hold a key appointment.
Is that just NCC as a CCA, or like if you were to be in other uniform group? In your
That one I don't know.
Okay.
But this was how my school decided lah.
They were
So I only
pretty
got
strict.
1 point, which I'm a bit bitter about.
okay, you didn't take Kauhala.
I did not take off.
Okay,
Of course,
so-
of course not.
Is your said secondary school affiliated to any JC?
No.
No.
No
Okay.
affiliation.
So your max deduction was 1 point.
Yeah, 1 point.
Okay. Can. All right, but do you consider taking C-Lit in JC?
Of course not.
No, that's not
Of
right.
course not.
All right. Okay.
I did consider taking English lit though,
Oh,
but I didn't do so well for my English lit.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. Okay, so actually, before we move on to the next intended segment of the podcast, how do you really feel about this shift? I mean, let's really explore a little bit more about the whole idea of now you have more time. So if you're a student right now, you're thrown into this new 2028 and you now have more time. Like, how will you actually spend that amount of time?
Okay, let's just talk about whether or not I feel that this is a good thing or a bad thing. To be very, very honest, I'm on the fence. I think in general it sounds like a good thing. I'm all for freeing up more time for the kids to just enjoy and just be kids and explore new interests. They explore their own interests. Okay, go play sports or even just make friends and socialize. I think all of these are training soft skills which are not otherwise, you don't otherwise learn in a formal classroom setting. So I am in general for this, but I think this change will change the landscape of secondary education, has the potential to change the landscape of secondary education by quite a bit. Because now that you remove one subject, just now you were telling me that you have nine subjects, right? You took up to 9 subjects. I'm not so sure if the schools will offer up to 9 subjects anymore, considering that now you only need 5 subjects to enter JC, right? And of course, by usually, right, entering JC is the more stringent one, right?
Yes.
So I think the schools which try to push more of their students to the JC, they will try to offer those subject combis with generally more subjects. Okay, but now that the scoring criteria has lowered, I don't know if really the schools will change their subject offering. I don't know. I personally feel that as far as the subject combination is concerned, I think that double science may receive less enrollment. Because more students will be like, hey, if I only need 5 subjects to enter JC, why should I slog it out and then take pure science?
Okay.
But at the same time, maybe if I want to go to JC, I want to do a science stream, right? I want to do 2 sciences, I want to do chemistry and physics. If I want to do chemistry and physics, then if I do double pure, right, then I get penalized because now I'm slogging it out for 2 subjects instead of just I study for 1. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I understand. I feel like this whole L1R4 thing, it came from a very recent slew of educational paradigm shift. We were talking about the G1, G2, G3.
Yes.
And then after that, you move on to Sec 1, Sec 2, you got your SBB, your subject-based bending.
Yes.
And then now we are also incorporating your L1R4 to encourage lesser subjects. If you do take, and again, I don't know how this is going to be implemented. Let's say I'm extremely passionate about biology for a reason, but for the lack of a better word, I think that my chemistry it is a guaranteed A1. So can I take chemistry, but then I take bio on a leisure pace? That means there's non-examinable. Is this a possible thing whereby I think
this fulfills what the ministry wants.
So
right?
you are just pursuing your interest and it's a non-examinable interest. But again, then I'm not so sure that when a teacher would go to the class to teach a class of students, one of which bio is examinable for them and one of which bio is non-examinable for them, will the rigor of the lesson plan be affected? Because for that batch where bio is being examinable, I need to prep them for the exam. But for the non-examinable, I'm not under any kind of matrix.
I think as far as the school is concerned, they will generally try to push them towards and gear them towards excellence. I think the school has some standards to meet as well. Can't be we register all these students for O levels and then after that they just do poorly.
Right?
Yeah.
So interestingly itself, do you know that L1R4 was actually the golden standard of assessment in the 1980s? Of how we use it to enter junior college. So L1R4 wasn't a new thing.
It was brought back.
It was brought back.
I wasn't aware.
The reason here was that in 1980s for L1R4, all right, was because students itself are basing all 5 subjects L1R4 to enter junior colleges. But because there was very poor passing rates, all right, very poor passing rates, what happened over here is that students who use L1R4 to enter A level, they really just mostly flunk their time, all right? And because of that, they have wasted time over there. So we have in 1989 introduced L1R5. Right now, the purpose of L1R5 here, number one, is I'm going to use secondary school, in this case, your O level, as a mechanics to filter. Now, if you can survive the L1R5 criteria and you enter into secondary junior colleges, it shows that you have the tenacity to withstand the rigor of the junior college curriculum.
Okay.
So that was actually the main intention. All right. Now, however, we have now changed back to L1R4. So what do you think is your guess now? Like, why do we change back to L1R4?
I mean, I feel that nowadays, the preparation of the students are a little bit better, right? And I think people already hear all sorts of horror stories about JC. And I think if people decide to go JC, they don't make it lightly. They don't make this decision lightly.
Okay. And right? Because students are generally more well-informed of the choices they have at the tertiary level, right?
And I think during the 1980s, I don't know, I didn't grow up during the 1980s. But during that period of time, I think there perhaps was this stigma that, oh, you go poly is second tier compared to JC. JC is the more tried and tested path to go to university and then get a cushy office job.
So that you are saying that there's a general sentiment that in the 80s, JC is like the more prestigious path.
Yes, the more prestigious path.
Okay.
I think by now this mindset has shifted already because people understand that, hey, you go JC, you go poly. At the end of the day, you're not like a JC graduate may not be necessarily better off than a poly graduate.
I do agree with you of students being more well prepared, and this actually shows. And this was actually one of the pivotal moment because today, all right, we're talking from 1997 all the way to 2023. All right, so we do see itself, okay, that in the 1990s we're looking at around 65% of the student cohort passing their A levels. All right, but today, I'll use in 2023 the latest stats. We're looking at 95%. So this is close to a 30% jump from 65% to 93%.
Yeah.
All right, 95% that students are now better well prepared. And also just to also indicate here is that the proportion of O-level candidates who take 8 or more subjects has also grown from 15% in 1997 to about 30% in 2023. Okay, so this shows that the general population here is just taking more subject and they are surviving, which means that the general ability to withstand that kind of intensity is more well accepted by the general population of students. Unless you're telling me that 15% in the 1997 are people having 8 or more, and let's say today we're looking at 20%, then it will show that, okay lah, generally people will still have an aversion of doing more subjects.
Okay.
But not 30%, I think that's 1/3 of the population, 8 subjects.
So do you think with this shift back to L1R4, do you feel that given that as it stands, 30% of our cohort is already doing 8 or more subjects, right? Do you think that the mindsets will still be, oh, I must do more subjects to show that I'm better?
This is a very loaded question. All right, I feel that there's inertia. All right, so if you're telling me that 2028, I think students, because this is still very unfamiliar L1R4, and I want to be the devil advocate here. It's L1R4, right? But what if now I change the syllabus of each other subject? I increase the number of topics that's being examined. I increase the difficulty. I increase the number of higher level taking questions. Then it's the same thing. I take 10 and I squish it into 5, but yet I make the 5 feels like it's 10.
I don't think.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Because there have been a number of syllabus changes already in recent years for the secondary, both combined science and pure science syllabus. I don't think they will change.
But I feel like
again.
I feel like as a purpose of insurance, all right, for an L1R4, I will still not just take 5. I will perhaps take 6 or 7 as an insurance.
Yeah.
Because this whole insurance idea here is very important. What if I'm a double science student?
Yes.
All right. Or I'm a single science student. So if it's single science, again, probably chemistry is the way to go. I mean, if you're going to go to GC, this is a very critical science. But then I'm confused. If I want to go to JC and I want to do a chem physics course, but in O level I don't take physics, then
you did not put it as part of your L1R5, right?
Not only L1R4. Let's say you did not put it as part of L1R4, but you don't even have that. Then how do I, as the JC, know that you have the caliber to survive the rigor of H2 physics? So the JC has to work in concurrent, because now if let's say I say the rigor of the science course, if I just base off L1R4, I don't care what you do, but your L1R4, if it's at this score and below, okay, you're in the science faculty. Then I think, okay, then students will have the liberty to choose the subjects at O level. But if let's say
at the end of the day, the JC will still have to decide like, hey, your L1R4 may be 5 points raw.
Yeah.
But because your physics is like maybe D7, I don't allow you to take physics.
What if the student don't even have physics in the first place and still got a L1R4 raw or 5? Then are you going to let the student take physics?
As a JC, I wouldn't lah.
I wouldn't
as a JC, I wouldn't.
So again, this whole idea of having lesser topics being used, I think it's a general good shift. But then the JC still has some time to play catch up now at this moment, because if I'm having lesser topics and I just so happen to take a topic that I don't need it in JC, then can I be eligible for that course as well? I think this is something we need to wrap our mind ahead.
I think this is why my suggestion or my earlier hypothesis of at the end of the day, combined science may become the new normal, right?
Yes.
Because you get the best of both worlds. Right? If let's say I want to do JC physics chem, I just take combined science.
Okay, but I'm going to say again, if you're taking combined, there is a need to bridge.
Yeah.
There is a need to bridge.
Yes, definitely there's a need to bridge. But I think in my experience, at least for physics, there is not much bridging to be done. There's only like one or two topics only. For chemistry, is there a very wide gap?
We're talking about things like organic chemistry, electrolysis. These are missing.
Yeah, I think chemistry might be bigger, but for physics, really, there's nothing much. I think the left hand row, right hand row, they don't
and lens, is it?
Yeah.
No.
The Fleming's left hand row and then Fleming's right hand.
Okay.
It's just one left hand, one right hand. I think the combined science students don't learn right hand.
Okay.
But they also don't learn
hand.
heat capacity.
I see.
But that's it.
I see.
Yeah.
So I want to poke hole, and think of why is the minister doing this? Is it really because people has been getting generally smarter? I mean, it's a good sign that everyone's getting smarter, or is it because, sorry, I really have to say this, is it because enrollment in JC is very jialat? It's very bad. Like now you're making it very attractive for me to go to JC.
So we've prepared like some stats, right? And over here it says in pre-university what the trend has been like for the past few years. And I think we have to compare this with the overall number of students.
Yes.
Schooling students, right? So in the past we had 19440, and we are looking at what, 2010? 2010. So 19440, about 19k compared to a total of about 500k. Okay. And then gradually you can see that this both numbers start going down.
Yes.
And I think this is in line with the decreasing population, right?
But there's a pretty drastic drop around 2020, right?
Yes. So I think around 2020. So 2020 we have, so the previous year we have 14k. So in 2019 we have about 14k JC students. For 424,000 total enrollment.
Okay.
And then the following year it became
13k.
Then after that it became 12 plus k. Generally it shows that there does seem to be an overall trend towards
Polytechnic.
Yep.
So I use this data. So in the
it's a bit
past 5
tenuous.
years,
I must say first that it is a little bit tenuous. I do feel that statistically we are not doing any sort of very, very rigorous analysis. But yeah, I think you can roughly see.
Yeah. Because over the past 5 years, right, let's put some numbers. All right, 27% of students enrolling in post-secondary institution have entered either JCs or MI. 27%. But 43% opted for polytechnics. So you have almost twice as much population of students that's opting for polytechnics. Okay, the next data is actually more important. All right. Again, based off L1R4, we mentioned that 20 points and below, you're eligible for JC. All right. So in the same period, in this past 5 years, about 42% of students who otherwise are eligible for JC, they chose to enroll in polytechnic.
To go poly, right?
So this is a very important kind of a statement over here. You can go, but you chose polytechnics. Okay. And again, the whole intention here is that we will want to, at least for what I view over here, is we do not want to oust people out of the junior college system by making it too difficult for them to enter. But yet, we cannot make it so simple for them to enter that students start to underestimate the rigor of the curriculum itself.
I think there was a lot of public sentiment, not a lot, but there were some voices that did express like, hey, now that you make entering JC easier, will it affect the number of seats that we have in the JCs? And I think the second minister for MOE, Dr. Maliki Osman, said that he doesn't think that there will be an increased number of students going to the JC pathway. But I think so far the statistics that you have quoted to me support this idea because students already know like, oh, okay, I want to go poly or I want to go JC. Right? So even if I can make it to JC, I won't go JC.
I will still go poly.
Because I will still go poly. Because I think generally students are a little bit more aware of what they want personally and what their studying style is like personally. And I think there are a lot of voices that they can hear from their teachers, and there are a lot of voices that they can hear on Reddit and social media and whatnot. To that advice appropriately like, hey, am I suitable for JC or is going poly better for me?
Okay, I think at this moment, I'm just going to take a segue. I want to let the listeners know our personal thoughts as to why JC sometimes seems a bit more attractive, especially for the gentlemen. You want to make a wild guess? After JC, when they're done, they need to go NS, right?
Yeah.
So what if you go poly? You're going to go NS 1 year later, right?
Yes.
Okay, so for you to kickstart into university,
Yes.
is 1 year later. Okay, however, there's a caveat. This is a very important thing. However, if you practice a course that's similar to your diploma, there will be modules, exemption that's taken away. And if you exempt sufficient and you match well enough,
yes,
that 1 year lag that you have, you will probably be prepared into year 2 as well.
Yes, but I as far as I know that this is, this does require quite a bit of planning because most of the poly students I know, right, actually they are not eligible for enough exemptions to give them 1 full year worth of exemptions. Maybe 1 sem is okay, but I personally haven't heard of cases where
they jump a year.
Yeah, they jump 1 entire year. Or maybe I think for engineering, this is a little bit more possible because if you study engineering in poly, then you go uni, there's a very big overlap. But as far as I know, I had some friends who did engineering and then after that they come to uni and then they study physics. There is overlap and the poly students do get some exemptions from the lab modules, but not enough to knock off 1 entire year.
So now for the listeners out there who have kids who are in poly or you're polytechnic students, I will tell you something, okay, that makes you feel like the field is being leveled. JC got high chance of retention in J1.
Yes.
So
higher. Generally, JCs try not to retain their kids also.
So if let's say you kena retention, then okay it's leveled already at the playing field, right?
Okay.
But technically, if all else being considered, ideally JC they cleared within 2 years, alright?
Yeah.
They enter university after their NS for the gentlemen, alright? But for the gentlemen in poly, they clear after 3 years. They enter uni after that, but they have course exemption sufficient for them to skip a year. Which is rare. Alright. So I think the allure of now going to JC for people who are on the fence, I think this L1R4 news is the biggest for them.
Yes.
The barrier is now lesser.
Yes.
But really, do you really think that the subject combination, let's really talk about this. How will the selection, we have been talking about this throughout
Sec 2
to Sec 3.
to Sec 3. Again, I do feel that like what you said, there will be a little bit of inertia. I think people will still be, at first, they'll be like, hey, I just take A subjects first. Because they don't know what it's like being assessed under this new system. And I think schools will also take some time to react. But once data starts coming in, once the schools are able to see like, oh, my students are performing at this particular level, I think they will start to adjust their subject offering once again.
Different kind of bundles.
Different subject packages. So again, I really have this inkling sensation that combined science will take more.
Will start to rise again.
Will start to rise again. Yeah.
But what about the whole idea that L1R4 still requires a relevant humanities subject? Okay, to the best of my knowledge now, all students have to take social study.
Yes.
Which is an elective / combined humanities. You need to combine it with another humanities, so geog, lit, history, you need to combine that.
And I think this is something that my wife may have something to say about. My wife is a humanities, like language and humanities teacher as well. So I think when you don't have to take that many subjects, which is the subject that you naturally want to cut first?
Okay, coming from the science perspective, humanities are you want to
the
cut?
Humanities, right? Because generally humanities are a little bit more difficult to score, right? And generally, like if you write well in one particular essay, it doesn't mean you will write the same in a particular in a different essay. Versus if you do well in one science paper, the next paper is more or less indicative of your performance. So I think it is easier to control your grades in science, but it's harder to control your grades in humanities. So I think if students have the option to take fewer subjects, they may decide to
X humanities.
And I think a lot of humanities teachers will be a bit sad. I know we are the Science Academy and
not the Humanities Academy.
Not the Humanities Academy, but to me personally, I feel that there is a place for the humanities. I think that there is a lot of value in people studying literature, history, geography.
But can I now still take it, but I choose for it not to be examinable?
I think cannot lah.
just-
Again, the school.
But it's
yeah,
just so here's the thing. If the intention here is for them to go and cultivate interest, and I feel that the fastest way to kill an interest is that you make it examinable. You make it that it's being accessible. So let's say I like origami, but then you tell me now next week you have to do an origami assessment. You have this amount of time to fold this thing and everything. It doesn't cultivate my joy anymore because now I'm being assessed on my aptitude for that hobby itself and aptitude for that particular subject. So
I think this is a good idea, and perhaps if Minister Chan Chun Sing is listening,
okay, invite him as a guest.
We are suggesting, or Mr. Yu over here is suggesting.
Yes, I'm suggesting.
Mr. Yu over here is suggesting that we have programs where we teach the subject, but it's non-examinable.
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 Yes,
And instead of being assessed based off like the actual score, we give the students a group project. Right?
Yeah,
I think this is
good. I mean,
interesting.
This is down the line of honing interest or something. Like, if you'd ask me, I have a general interest in geography. I like it. All right, I feel like I'm a rock star like when I'm doing geography. Okay, but anyway,
literal rock star.
literally rock star. But I think I like the study of it. But once you make it examinable, I don't find it attractive because now I am learning to memorize to score, but I'm not learning to cultivate my own general interest.
The same thing for myself between history and literature. I actually enjoy literature a lot, and I love all my literature classes when I was in secondary school, but I didn't do that well in my O-level literature lah. So and history as well. Like I love learning about history, but if you ask me to sit down and memorize all the dates, right, or when did Lenin rise to power, when did so and so come?
No,
I cannot lah.
You know this historical event, but the actual timestamps.
The actual timestamp there, and after that you want to evaluate like all the social and economic. Like you ask me to write down and in an essay that is examinable, right? Wow, I cannot.
Okay, so you know that your son and my daughter will be affected by this 202 exchange, right?
Yes, of course.
So now,
but maybe by then.
Okay, but let's just say that things are status quo lah. Alright, things are status quo, and assuming that there's a few things I want to see it happen is that I think the next move should come from the JC onto how they assess L1R4 as a benchmark for what courses the kids are eligible. Are they open to letting kids take science course as an example, BCME, Biochem Math, 3H2s, example,
when they don't have
bio. Are we talking about just
what
using
sort of bridging programs that they will offer for these people, right?
Yes, and does that mean the revival of the first 3 months again? I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
And also now speaking as a parent, right? Maybe I'll go first. Now my child has a huge pocket of time. All right, I won't say huge lah, but going from 8-9 subjects down to a minimum of 5 means that they have 3 subjects lesser. Will there be a shift in optimizing tuition and enrichment classes? Like, if let's say my daughter is genuinely interested in geography again, but it's not examinable, why would I want to send her for geography tuition if she were to ask me for it? I won't. So that's my first one point. And if we want to support a whole generational mind shift change, because I think that whatever the ministry is doing here is that we want to move away from the rigor of academic. We want to make learning less painful, more enjoyable. So the whole generational mind shift has to start somewhere. And would it be from us like, okay, you know what? We're just going to cut out tuition time. All right, we actually spend time, we go out to the park, we go and walk, we go and run and all. But I don't want to say, oh, now you got more time, is it? You got 5 subjects. I'm going to optimize. Instead of 1 camp tuition a week, you got time, right? I give you 2 camp tuition a week. Like, would you think that this is something that you can advocate for?
I think, personally as a parent, I won't torture my kid by sending them for 2 of the same tuition per week lah.
Okay.
I mean, as being in this industry, I do see this happen. I think especially for primary school level. Secondary school is a little bit rarer, but I generally do feel that it's a bit. I feel a little bit sorry for the kid.
But will you abuse the fact that now your child has more time and you will try to like pump them full of enrichment and tuition?
I am not that kind of parent. I don't think I'm that kind of parent. I think if, let's say, there's more time for my kid to just unwind, sit down, read books, all right, go out to the park, play a little bit more.
If your kid say that, now I got more time, I want to go for judo classes, let him go lah.
If they want, I'm okay.
Yeah, it's not examinable, right?
Yeah. If they want, I'm okay.
So this is really a mindset shift that it has to start from one generation.
Yes.
I hope that by our kids' time, I'm not to say that my academic journey was unpleasant. I am a little bit weird. I think I mentioned many times before that when I took my last paper in uni, I was sad because I don't have exam anymore. I enjoy the thrill of going to the exam and just writing a little bit.
I like to study, but I don't like exam.
Okay, I thrive in that stressful like kind of environment. But I hope that our kids will grow up into another generation of parents that start to support the fact that academic is a part of life, but not the only part of life. All right, then it has to move from somewhere. Because if you think about it, this is over how many decades that we are very ingrained into I Chong PSLE, I Chong O level, I Chong A level. So when someone is brave enough, like the minister, to try to crack the system and modify the system, there will definitely be natural inertia and resistance. But I think it is a general good move. It's a general good move. But it requires all different levels of institution to sync up.
Yeah, but the long-term effects we have to see. We really, really have to see how people, I think inevitably people will try to game the system. I think this is something which our kiasu mindset, knowing that Singapore is a very kiasu society, we cannot avoid, right?
So now this is mind shift versus cultural already.
Yes.
It's a much bigger scale. Okay, so Viren, today, how do you feel? Is this a TakChek or PekChek topic for you?
I personally feel that this is a TakChek topic. I do want to see where this goes. I want to see in future, how will the schools adjust their own subject offerings for Sec 3 and Sec 4. I want to know if they eventually roll out this whatever suggested plan to make certain subjects like non-examinable. Right? I think it's a good idea, but I feel that on a resource level, on a school resource level, cannot lah.
Too taxing.
Because
Because now I will have people taking random stuff, just for the sake of taking, they like it and all. Yes.
I think the teachers may not want to commit, or the school principal may not want to commit to running such a program, right? Okay, but I mean, if let's say there are schools that do this, I'll be very, very happy. I do think that there will be a little bit of a better take-up in JC, but I think this remains to be seen. A lot of the things really, we have to wait and then we have to see what the long-term effects
are. So you have to mine data
Yes.
And make sense out of it. Myself, I'm very aligned with you. I think this is a very TakChek moment. And I think the most critical part here is that I hope to see all of the levels of institution coming together to have a very seamless progression. So I think the primary school have done with the G1, G2, G3, Sec 1, Sec 2, you have subject-based bending, 2028, now we're going to introduce L1R4. I want to
Sec
see...
1, the AL... Oh, sorry.
No.
Primary school
from the ALs will
the AL
give them
system.
the G3, G2s, then Sec 1 SBB, then now 2028, Sec 3, Sec 4, we have your L1R4. I want to see how the JC, like I mentioned quite a number of times, how are they going to use scoring to determine the combination, or are they going to use offering to determine the combination? Which I feel the latter, if you use the subjects to affect the combinations in JC, I think this is still going to be a little bit messy from there.
But JC also, there was a revamp, right, where they took away the project work. And they also removed the requirement to take H1 or to include H1, the H1 into your rank point.
Correct. So I think these are exciting times for me.
Yeah.
I am, again, still concurring on the fact that we need to mine the data and see how the numbers change. And I just want to add that people who want to go to JC, with, is it L1R4, L1R5, or even L1R7, I think they will still go to JC. I think this one is really to help the fringe cases, to consider. I think this is maybe the move over there. And as parents, I do hope that when my kids become parents, I hope that the next time we're talking about that, there will be a very big paradigm shift whereby things are more well-rounded. You go and explore your time and get hone other skills. I think that's important. All right, we do want to hear from the listeners out there. If your kids going to go for the 2028, which is this year's Sec 1, they will be affected by this particular change. how are you preparing in lieu of these new changes? Are you now thinking about, swarming them with tuition classes, or you're going to optimize their tuition classes? And also, if minister can come here and have a chat with us in terms of, attempting subjects, honing subjects without, the obligation for it to be examinable, well, I think this would be a pretty good conversation to have.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.